Um, and you can't really see the afferent efferent renal veins, but the blood's going into the kidneys, it's leaving the kidneys, and eventually where it leaves to is the posterior cardinals, which run right down the midline between the kidneys here. And you can see kind of injected running along like that there, the blue, and that's the posterior cardinals. That's going to then drain that blood back to the heart. Okay. Then we get to the systemic veins. And if we go back to the heart, I think, is this the guy I was doing? This one's going to be better. Hard to tell. I'll try this one. Go back to the heart. Here's the sinus venosus. And the sinus venosus is receiving on either side blood coming in by way of the common cardinal veins. Exactly. And so these veins you can see here on either side entering into the sinus venosus. And they get cut when you cut the pharynx open. What's sort of hard to remember when you're looking at this is that this vessel is coming from dorsal and wrapping all the way around the gut to get ventral to get to the heart. But that's what it's doing, and it's doing so by running through the transverse septum. Okay. So that's the common cardinal vein, and if we come then and look dorsally here, the common cardinal vein is right here, coming around like this. It's receiving blood coming in here from the posterior cardinal vein. The posterior cardinal vein is kind of expanded at its front end, and it's called the posterior cardinal sinus. Okay. You see that at all? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So pushing it forward, you get to the anterior cardinal vein?
So we're getting there. Okay, so that's the posterior cardinal vein. Anterior cardinal veins or sinuses we can find if we put a probe forward from here, like this. And that space that the probe is in is the anterior cardinal sinus. And if it's the same space that we saw previously where the dorsal and lateral interarcuals are. You can see where the probe is coming out here if I look dorsally. And that's the anterior cardinal sinus. Okay, so it's this big space just above the gills. Okay.
That is where the vein goes through, though, right?
Anterior.
The posterior cardinal vein goes through the sinus.
This is the anterior cardinal.
Anterior, yeah.
Sinus or vein. A sinus is just a big vein, so it's called a sinus in a shark. More generally, it's the anterior cardinal vein. Okay. Okay. So that's this big space here that we've opened up. Anterior cardinal. Get my probe back. The other sinus that's also best seen just by probing for it is the inferior jugular. And the inferior jugular is in the musculature just dorsal to the heart. And again, if we probe the anterior wall of, if I get into the right spot here, the anterior wall of the common cardinal vein, see where the probe is going here into this musculature, right, like that? Not really? Right there? Okay. That's the inferior jugular vein coming back into the common cardinal. Oh, wow. Okay. And it's really hard to actually dissect this out, but it's very easy to probe for it in this region and find it. Okay. All right. The next veins you're going to like because they're super obvious and everybody loves them because they're super obvious. The lateral abdominal veins. So these big ones that run along the sides of the abdomen. Lateral abdominal veins. And I think it was this one. Is this the guy who had a really good one? Yeah. The lateral abdominal veins come along and they kind of wrap around and turn into something called the subclavian vein that then drains down into the common cardinal.
Oh, wow.
And you can see that right here, the subclavian coming in to the common cardinal. You see that? There's lateral abdominal, and it wraps around there and then comes in here as the subclavian vein. Okay. Do we have any time left at all? Okay. So here's the heart. There's the ventral aorta coming forward out of it. And you can see the afferent branchial arteries here. And there's this big fork at the front end of the ventral aorta. And that branches to give rise to the first and the second afferent branchial arteries. This is the third. And then back here, we have the fourth and the fifth afferent branchial arteries. Come off very close to each other. Okay, so for you guys here, here's the first and the second afferent branchial. There's the third, and here's the fourth and the fifth coming off. Did you see that on right? Okay. And the only other thing I'll point out is that if you do go and start peeling away dorsally here, you'll start to see the efferent branchioles, but that needs to get cleaned up more before we could really see that well. So I